Go with it. Damn. That was a good way to start it off. Ooh.
You okay?
Yeah, of course I'm okay. Well, the day I'm not, like, you'll see me like just like keel over the side of my chair.
I work in the
pretty
medical
sure.
industry. I'm trained to ask.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
You know what I mean?
I gotta see. I think I put the link out there. I'm pretty sure I did. Yep, I did. I did, Holly. David Thundercloud. Hey, y'all. David Thundercloud. Is that a Native American name? David? Just curious. Not trying to typecast you in any way. Holly. You ready to do this?
I am.
It's been a while.
It is. I took a little bit of a trip.
All right, let's get into this here. Bum bum bum. Biddy dee 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 dee. Ba da 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 da. Boop boop boom. Da da da. Welcome back, Holly.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Slip into the Night, episode 16.
Wow.
Sacred Spaces. I've been in a few sacred spaces, if you know what I mean, Holly. So, how was your vacation to warmer climates, Holly?
It was wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you had a really good time?
I did. I had some adventure.
Yeah?
Got to see some new places that I've not been before, which is always a good thing.
Did you get to see the two ships crash into each other?
That that happened the day after I was at the island of Cozumel. So I did not see that. I was in the middle of the Yucatan Straits when that happened, and I can understand why.
Is Cozumel an island?
Cozumel is an island, yeah.
Is it? I thought it was on the tip of the peninsula.
I think that's Cancun.
Yeah, I see. I don't know any of that shit. I'm not smart like that.
So yeah, and I didn't really know about Cozumel before it was going to be on the cruise itinerary. I took a cruise, and
When you took my advice, stay away from the railings, right?
I never felt like there was a falling risk on the ship that I was on. For a cruise ship, it actually was a relatively small ship.
Yep.
So, and I had kind of heard of it, but I didn't really know about Cozumel before I went. And then I did a little research. It is an island that's off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, and they have some Mayan ruins there. They have beautiful beaches. They have a very beautiful reef there.
Yeah, I did snorkeling when I was there.
Yeah, we went to the eco park and saw the crocodiles and the beautiful beach and the beautiful birds, and they have saltwater crocodiles in the mangroves, and iguanas, great big iguanas.
Oh hell yeah!
But because it was like stormy, and when we would be out to sea, it was quite stormy. It would be pouring rain, and the waves were like.
Oh, so you had rough seas.
We had rough seas when we were on our sea days.
That's not fun.
And I'm lucky because I apparently am pretty impervious to seasickness. But they were putting the puke bags out in the bathrooms and stuff as the ship crew was concerned. They closed down the outdoor pool because it was pouring on like the top deck, and brought all the activities inside. We still had a great time. It did not detract at all Although the first night when it was really stormy and I'm trying to go to sleep, and they have like these safes in the suite rooms and that you can use, and in order to like really shut the door, you have to set the lock. Well, the waves were so much; it was like going bang, bang, bang. So I had to like lock it empty to like so I could sleep
Right.
because you'd hear the whole ship creak as it was going through the swells, and that was a bit adventuresome, but we were
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Every time we were at port, it was beautiful. So
I can't remember how many we had some rain days the week that when I went on my honeymoon years ago, my ex-wife. But the weather was mostly nice during our days at sea, and I would sit up on the deck and just lay in a chair, have a drink, and read. And that's what I did when I was at sea.
yeah,
I didn't do much of anything on that boat. I did not. I didn't, participate in any of the shows or gatherings or whatnot. I stayed in my room, went and got food, or went and sat and enjoyed the view of just the open ocean and sky and nothingness, and read my book, and it was great.
yeah.
And I had
It's nice. You can really make what you want of it.
Mhm.
And then we got to see some new places we hadn't been before, and it was amazing. And so
Nice.
we had a great time. And I feel definitely I was getting because I hadn't taken a real vacation in like probably 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'd taken it like a like a work holiday here and there, but not really any length of time. So it was very overdue.
Nice.
And it was good for me too to like have that plan a trip and go and do it, just me and my daughter. So that was really a good experience.
Yeah. No, it's awesome that you got to do that. And I mean, it was cool that you were. So they didn't have any type of Wi-Fi on the boat.
You had to pay for it.
Did you? They get you
And it
for
was like
everything.
per day, and I thought it was quite a per day per person, so I couldn't even do like a family thing.
Oh my
And
God! Really?
yeah, and then, and my daughter's
Like
cell
how
phone is
much? How much? What? Just out of curiosity, how much were they? How much were they raking you for if you took it?
I don't remember. I'd have to look
Really?
it up. But it
Yeah,
was
I'm gonna have to look into that, because that's so weird that they don't offer it as a free amenity. Like, because all the hotels do. And it
yeah.
wouldn't be anything for them to get, like, just one, you know, high speed satellite transmission internet in there. I mean, it wouldn't be great for streaming. I don't know how the satellite stuff is now for streaming. I know in the beginning, satellite internet wasn't that great.
Yeah. So, and in fact, when you were on the ship and you had pulled away from, like, if you were in port, you might be able to like get,
A signal.
a business's free Wi-Fi. But if out in the ocean, it would automatically prompt you to the cruise line's Wi-Fi and say, "Do you want to do this? This is what the charge is going to be." But I don't remember what it was. And I don't pay for my daughter's cell phone. Her dad does. And I was like, and I don't think you want to just like bring this bill on your
Oh,
dad.
come on, make a phone call.
But we get it. Come on, we don't have that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome you get to get away and go on vacation and
Yeah.
spend some time with your daughter. Do that. I mean, that was what you had intended anyway.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I mean, it wasn't. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. I mean, other people can do more luxurious things and whatever. I mean, it was a nice cruise. It wasn't the most expensive one, and we didn't even do a ton of things. We just did what was right for us, and we relaxed and we had a good time together, and that's
Nice.
that's all it needed to be. And then so next time though, I think I'm gonna think about doing a trip on my own. See how that expands
Yeah.
my comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that can be a cool thing. I mean, it is I mean, I think it's a risk for anybody to go out on their own.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, you're. I mean, you are being the most vulnerable. One of the things that I had always wanted to do was go hiking alone, but it's one of the things they tell you not to do.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
true.
especially if you're going on a decent hike, they're
Mhm,
like, just don't do that. Because I had always
mhm,
wanted to go, just me and my dog.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I just I never got up the fucking balls to go out and do it.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, because I was just like, if anything ever happens, yeah, I'd have my fucking dog with me, but it and maybe I could get a signal on my phone and get in touch with somebody, you know, if something really went down, but
Mhm.
more than likely, I'm gonna be in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, at the very least, if you do that, tell people where you're going,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
general region of where you're going to be.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because I live in New Hampshire, and the White Mountains are here are a very popular hiking destination, and there are a lot of solo hikers up there.
Mhm.
But there have been many instances where people have
I've
either
gone
gone
missing.
off the trail or they've run into trouble someplace like Mount Washington, and they've gotten hypothermia. So
Yeah.
it's a
I'd run into one guy, um, early on when I was hiking when I was young, on East Royce, and that guy, he was all by himself and just boom, flew past us. I mean,
mhm,
'cause we were just taking our time and, you know,
mhm.
basically like hanging out in the woods, smoking weed and climbing to the top of a mountain. But, you know, and he was all by himself and he just, you know, hey, I found this mountain, you know, years ago. I can't remember if he said like his dad had introduced him to it or something. And he always wanted to just come back. And he
Mhm,
just boom, up and down.
mhm.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
East Royce is a really quick mountain.
yeah.
It's only a mile to the top. It's
Mhm,
straight the fuck up though.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I mean, getting out there on your own is it's interesting, and you know, kind of segueing into our topic. You know, I've always found mountaintops to be like little sacred spaces,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
little
Yeah.
quiet, far away from. You know, the mountaintops tend to be so far removed from anything else. um, but yeah.
Mhm,
I've always that's one of the things that got me very interested in hiking was the fact that I could have this journey
mhm,
that, you know, was also very scenic. Like climbing to the
mhm,
tops of any of the mountains that I've climbed it's always been a beautiful climb. Like I find
mhm,
waterfalls or pools or, you know,
mhm,
little streams or whatnot, or maybe you run into wildlife. I ran into I had a peregrine falcon fly right in front of my face
mhm.
one day
Yeah,
climbing East Royce.
yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I had actually intended to cancel the trip that day because it was raining,
Mhm,
and we'd been planning it for a while. And I went with my ex-wife's brother, and you know, we were like, fuck it, you know, let's do it. And when we got up on the side of the mountain, it just started downpouring. And when it settled and stopped raining, we come out from where we were trying to get what little cover we could where we were. Um, we're sitting there shooting the shit between us, and a friggin' peregrine falcon just from like probably 20 feet to my right, his left, just boom right between us.
mhm,
I was like, holy shit,
mhm,
because they nest over on West Royce. But
mhm,
um, it is just cool getting to see shit like that. You know, we
mhm,
ran another time with her brother. I ran into something. Don't know what it was to this day.
mhm,
Don't know if it was a moose. Don't know if it was a bear.
mhm,
Hell, I don't know if it was Bigfoot. If you want to throw it out there,
mhm,
everybody run with that. Chris said he saw Bigfoot. News 11. No, we ran into something big. It was
mhm,
huge. Because we heard it crash through the fucking through the forest. But
mhm,
and the dog I had at the time, Phoebe, she went fucking nuts. All the
mhm,
hair on the back of her neck just poof, straight
mhm.
up. But yeah, that was an interesting situation. That one.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've always found those, those little places in nature that those, and when you look back to the at different traditions, they would deem certain places in nature or outside as sacred spaces, and some traditions actually, will say you probably should have an outdoor location, something to
Yes.
experience these things out in, the natural world, not contained within your home.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The kind of the um, the Caro traditions of the Andes Mountains, which are a lot of the teachings that I've learned. They value, they respect what they call the Apus, which are the mountain spirits. The mountains down there in the Indies are definitely in the Andes. They call them. They recognize them as sacred
They
spaces and
call
sacred.
them coca leaves.
Well, you know what though? They do have the coca leaves down in the Andes, but they also treat it as a sacred medicine. They
Yeah, no, and
they're
it's totally different. When they chew coca leaves, it's completely different from doing cocaine.
mhm.
For those of you who think that they're just like friggin' tweaked out on cocaine, it's a
Right.
completely
So
different thing. And they use it to be able to endure those high altitudes.
yeah, yeah, yep. So they have a lot of respect for the Apus, the mountain spirits, and they would apply. They wouldn't say that the mountain spirits are just in the Andes. That any of the great high mountains would have an Apu. So here in New England, the Mount Washington in New Hampshire is the highest mountain. That would be a mountain that they would see as sacred and recognize it as having an Apu, and that it would be a sacred space because it is, you know, um, this place of the nature spirits. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that they would really love that there's a restaurant and an observatory up there, in a road, um, so that you can drive up it. But notwithstanding that, they would say, it's much more than that, and that you need to have some of these wild spaces in nature. And probably my feeling is that all of our natural spaces are sacred, but there are sometimes some that feel like they have a real concentration of energy, or what they call like the axis mundis, or
Hmm.
or spots that seem to be very concentrated and like extra sacred. And
Right.
sometimes ancient civilizations would erect some kind of monument there, such as like Machu Picchu. Um, there does seem to be something like mystical about that space. And then other places in the world like Stonehenge, or the Delphic Oracle on Mount Delphi in Greece, the pyramids where mankind has erected monuments to kind of signify the sacredness of a certain location.
Yeah, like I mean, Serpent Mound,
Hmm.
the any of the temples in India.
Yes. Yep.
Um, I think even some of the places that are now underwater were at one point in time sacred spaces. um, you've got entire cities that are underwater. There's probably monuments we don't even know about.
Absolutely.
But you got I think what is it called? The Yanaguni or Yamaguni fucking Japanese thing there. That's all underwater. That thing's pretty fucking fascinating. And
Hmm.
I'm sure if we knew more about that,
Hmm.
we'd know that it was built for some purpose.
Hmm.
So,
Right. So, and I can think that, in that same vein, sometimes, you bring that sacred space into your regular space, or you dedicate that sacred space into your regular space. So it's very common practice, I think, throughout lots of different like religions and spiritualities, to either make something like a church or a temple, which is kind of creating a sacred space, or having like an altar, or a little bit of a shrine in your home,
mhm.
so that so that you a dedicated space to kind of foster that. connection to something greater than yourself, whatever that might be for yourself. And it, there is like a whole gamut out there. Like you and I, we are kind of both fascinated by the variety of kind of how different people connect with the sacred spiritual realms. And um, you and I do it differently. You've done your thing. I have done kind of the shamanic thing. Although I was brought up in a more traditional Western church,
Mhm.
there is still some basic things in common with accessing that sacred space of kind of setting an intention, having kind of a space to set aside as this kind of dedicated ceremonial space, or creating it somehow through kind of a ritual incantation or prayer, and then working in that space, and
Mhm.
then closing it down. For me, one of the things that I did as I was learning what they call the shamanic teachings I was learning, was I was created my own personal altar space, which we call a mesa, and it's kind of like a medicine bundle. So
Mhm.
it's in a you've seen mine. It's
Yep.
wrapped up in this cloth, and when I kind of work or interface and do kind of shamanic type of meditation or stuff, I will open it up, and I have things in my mesa. Mesa means like table or altar, so it's like a portable mesa, portable altar. And then I have things that are of importance to me, or they have some kind of ritual significance to me, and in there, and I'll lay them out. And it's a lot of stones. It's little, I have seashells in there, some herbs, different things. Um, but they are ways that I kind of interact with the energy field. Other people
Yeah.
do it differently. It might be just a shelf that has like pictures of your ancestors. It is creating a dedicated space where you remember your ancestors. Funny story is I took my mesa with me on my trip. It was in my carry-on bag. And in fact, we were coming back home and going through security, and it went through the x-ray machine. It had already been x-rayed 3 times. Going
Yeah.
through the x-ray machine, and I got pulled aside, and they said, "Ma'am, we'd like to
And
like we
it's because you were bringing it back into the country.
we'd like to go through your bags." So they searched my bags, and they pulled it out, and they said, "What is this?" And I said, "This is my mesa. It's my medicine bundle." And Broward County, Florida, Sheriff's Department and airport security gave me a look, and my daughter is like rolling her eyes, and she's like, I said, "You can." They said, "Can we open this, ma'am?" I said, "You sure can. You go right ahead, ma'am." It's a lot of stones, a lot of herbs. What is this, ma'am? I'm like, "This is my medicine bundle. It's it's a spiritual tool."
This is something that I shouldn't have brought on my trip.
Why? Why shouldn't I have
Well,
brought it?
no, no, no. See, here's the thing. You should be able to, and you shouldn't have had a problem with it. But in the climate of today, that bringing that through security, you're asking to get looked at.
I
I
had no
ran,
problem with them looking at me.
I ran into the same problem when I was coming back from California with all of my crystal balls.
Mhm,
And they were like, "What is this?" And I'm like,
mhm,
"It's a obsidian crystal ball." I like had to explain each individual stone to them.
mhm.
So it's not the greatest thing to bring through on a carry-on. Um, if you put it in your other in with the other
Yeah.
stuff, probably not. But as a carry-on, yeah, not the best thing to bring.
Mm. Well, I took it knowing that that was a possibility, and I accepted the possibility, and we got through it just fine. They looked
Yeah,
at it. It was exactly what I told them. They
yeah, and
just
once they see that, they're not going to have a problem with it.
nope. And then and in fact, he couldn't fold it back up right, and he was just like, "Here, you take care of it." So I folded it back up and we put it in my bag and off we went.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, no, I when I was I actually still have it. I should have unburied it for the show. It's kind of buried right at the present time. Not really, but I have my old altar from when I was regularly practicing ritual magic, and it's I wood burned the entire top of it with all the I think I have the Enochian tablet on there of the elements, and I have all. It's really the altar that I have made. It's kind of just it's hard to explain. It isn't a piece of reference material, but yet it is.
mm-hmm.
It's a really weird piece of work. And like I said, I'll dig it out sometime. We'll take a look at it on the show, but I put a shit ton of work into that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it was. I was creating something for me that represented what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that was, that was what it was. And I still feel pretty strongly about it to this day. It's not, it hasn't, my feelings about it hasn't changed so much that I'm like, yeah, that's a piece of shit that doesn't mean nothing. Or doesn't mean anything. Excuse me. Using a double negative. I think it's still pertinent. I think it still holds meaning to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I could pull that thing out today and it would still have the same feeling to me that it did years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I know it would, because there's been times when I've just had it out, and sat with it. And, if you try to make that connection, it's like riding a bike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, and I think that it becomes an extremely personal thing, and it is just your personal way of kind of accessing that point of feeling connected with something bigger than yourself. And I hesitate to describe it as anything more than that, because people have such a big variety of beliefs in what that is.
Right.
And but I also think that for me, that's been very important for me to be able to connect with that point or that energy or whatever it is.
Well, I think the connection that people are trying to get is that connection to the divine within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And divine doesn't, necessarily mean any one thing. It's trying to find that in you. Or,
and perhaps in the world, because we
or
were just
to
talking about
find that true sense of you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's more to the point of it, is finding, who you really are and being who you really are. And having that be important, and not giving in to anything else. I think that's a big part of it. Being true to yourself is a huge part of the whole thing. Holly had an entrance. Dun, 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 dun. Now I gotta sit here and keep the show going while Holly gets through her visitor entrance. I know who it is, but be that as it may. Yeah, no, I think that these sacred spaces are very important when you're doing this type of thing. If you're going to get into these types of traditions, you should have something, some way of not so much transforming, but yes, into that mode, and those things, be it your altar, your spot, your place you go, the clothes you put on. I know in one of the traditions that I'd been studying, they recommended that you get a set of robes or something very traditional for your time, And I think it's all important because it gets your mind. Because a lot of this stuff is a brain hack. To be blatantly honest with you, like you're trying to hack your brain, you're trying to change your way of thought and get yourself into a different pattern. And by adopting these things, putting on the robe, using the different items, having your sacred space, you become uh, uh, you become something not greater than what you are, but you become more in tune with that thing that you're trying to become. And that's important. You all set over there, Holly?
We were talking before the show about how this was just like a weird bumpy morning, and there
Oh,
was
yeah.
some IT issues between our two computers, and some oversleeping and some like sleep disturbances, and then out of the blue my dad shows up.
Oh,
And
I thought it was your daughter.
no, she's not home until 12:30. So I was like, "What's going on?" And she normally wouldn't actually knock on the door. No, my dad popped by for something. So he's I muted things, and he's taking care of that. So
Yeah, I figured as much. But I just kind of like kept it going.
yeah, so I live in a small town in the same town with my family, and so I don't know. We it's just not
No, hey,
uncommon.
that
One,
sometimes that can be a very nice thing.
yeah. So
Having family close can
mhm.
be very comforting and very helpful.
And it can
And
be
sometimes it can be a pain in the ass.
it's true, but being a single mom and
No,
being
no,
in this,
I think it's good that you have your
it's
parents near.
it's very nice to have family be able to pop in and just make sure that I'm okay,
Yeah.
and help me with things. I know the other day we had an ice storm, and I'm up at chipping ice off my car, and it was a little bit of a struggle. So I'm blessed that my family pops in when they can and helps me with different things that can be um, more than one person.
Yeah,
Some
no,
because my
it's
daughter's in
good.
college too, so she's not always home all the time. So
Yeah,
um,
it's a good thing.
so I
And
I
you also have a good relationship with your family too. So,
yes, yeah. So well, and I think it's keeping on this topic of like sacred spaces, and two, one of the things that sacred space can do is bring people together and kind of connect in a way that's a little bit outside the everyday.
oh yeah, even like
You know,
home can be like in a sense a sacred space. Like if
mhm,
when I think of my early childhood and Christmases, I mean, I think of my grandparents' house.
mhm,
I don't think of my home where I grew up because I wasn't there very much. My parents split up, and then I was tossed back and forth, and
mhm,
so on and so forth. But I always had Christmas at my grandparents' house.
mhm,
So when I think of Christmas, I think of that.
mhm,
And that is that sacred space for that time,
mhm.
and it
Absolutely.
brought us together as a family.
And dinner table, where families come together as a community and eat together,
Mhm.
and that has many elements of creating a sacred space, coming together, joining in something meaningful, connecting with each other, connecting with some feeling of something more divine or bigger than oneself.
Mhm.
Um, you know, here in the U.S., we have Thanksgiving. That is, everybody at the table type of a thing.
Right.
But even just regular meals, like you know,
Yeah, making that
make,
effort.
making that effort to go to the table and have dinner at the table instead of eating in your chair and watching television,
Right.
that makes that mealtime a little bit more of a sacred space or a sacred ritual, which
Mhm.
does not have to have anything to do with any specific thought process. It's
Right.
just coming together.
Some people make it about that. There are some people who do say like grace and that shit before,
Hmm.
eating, and that I think in a sense that makes it that much more for them
Hmm.
of a sacred space
Hmm.
or sacred time.
And and I think in a lot of cultures, it's also about respecting where the food came from.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, here in New England, we have a lot of people who are deer hunters. It was always important to my family. My dad and I grew up on a farm that we were thankful for, the animals that gave their life to feed us,
Right.
to the plants that grew and we harvested, so that we were acknowledging our part in this kind of big web of life.
Right. Yeah, and
Um,
and to some people that's very important. You
mhm,
know, to Native Americans, to some Native American traditions, respecting the animal for what it gave you was huge. Um, and those sorts of things have gone on for thousands of years. In my opinion.
mhm,
Um,
yeah.
we've done a whole show on Gobekli Tepe, and Gobekli Tepe was just a huge temple, from what they can discern.
Mhm,
One huge sacred space.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So this stuff has been going on, and it was, damn it, it was from what they can determine, it was like a tribute to different things, like their animals depicted.
Mhm,
So who knows what they were paying homage to,
mhm,
at this place. But
mhm,
these sorts of things have gone on for generations and
mhm,
I mean, just as far back as, history can recount.
mhm.
It's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is that kind of um, almost universal respect for different life, um, or how we intersect with other life on the planet, or points on the planet of sacred energy, or creating that feeling of that.
Yeah, and when, like I said, when it comes to like, um if you're going to follow one of these spiritual paths, I think having a sacred space is an important part of that. Like having an area or a spot or whatnot is pretty important.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think because our days can be so busy, if you work, oh, I gotta go again. Um,
That's okay. Yeah, no, making sure that you have a spot, if you're, like I said, if whether it be just for your meditation, or maybe meditation is your spot. That's what you do. I've heard that like Jerry Seinfeld does like fucking transcendental meditation like before every show or something, or every day or some shit like that. And that's probably his fucking spot. That's his little zen fucking getaway. And he doesn't have a spot. His spot's in his brain. So to go to what you said, Stephen Christensen, your imagination is your sacred place to get away from reality. It is for a lot of people. But some people do it more meditative, more trying to clear their head than trying to fill it up with shit.
mhm,
So, but yeah, I mean, so I was just saying, Holly, that some people meditate as their sacred space. Like I've heard that Jerry Seinfeld does like
mhm,
transcendental meditation before like shows.
mhm.
He'll like do
Yep.
like 15 minutes or something.
Mhm,
And like he does it like every day, like that. And for some people, that's their sacred space. That's how they
mhm.
get away.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be a spot. Like when they talk about fucking going to your cave, fucking Fight Club.
Mhm, mhm. Well,
I'm in
sometimes you
my
don't.
cave. I'm in my cave. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. No,
Right.
that
It can.
shit's fucking real.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it can just be you're in your room and you are meditating in some way, and maybe you use music to help facilitate that. Like I like to listen to drumming tracks.
Hmm.
Drumming really helps my mind focus, and I can go within and I do a kind of meditation they call a shamanic journey, where you I visualize my internal landscape and access sacred space that way, as well as using what they call my mesa,
Hmm.
and it can be as simple or as ceremonial, complex as you what is right for you
Hmm.
to get you in that kind of um feeling.
Yeah, and like I said, some people use an altar. Some
Mhm.
people use a spot outside.
Mhm.
Some people, meditate, go inward.
Mhm.
Um, some people light candles.
Mhm. And
Uh,
like we were saying earlier, some people go for a hike, and
yeah,
that's their way, and they
that's
just
their
want
way.
to go take a walk, and they do have something what's called a walking meditation, and
Yeah,
they act.
I took a meditation class one
Mhm.
time, and yeah, the guy, the first thing, one of the first ones we did was we walked to a beach
Mhm.
on a hiking trail, and he that was the thing that he explained to us is that he's like meditation isn't just sitting with your, you know, in the what's the position they call it, the lotus position,
Yeah. Yeah.
and saying that type
Mhm.
of shit. Like it's not just that. But when we went on this hike, he's like, I don't want anybody to talk, like,
Mhm.
until we get where we're going.
Mhm.
Once we get there, you guys can talk all you want, but during the walk, stay quiet.
Mhm.
Just, try to clear your head,
Yes.
and it is very beneficial. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things that got me very interested in hiking
Mhm.
because I've
Yeah.
never been one to be very talkative on a hike,
Mhm.
and I like going with people that are quiet.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
it can be very effective to um, get on the trail, walk for a couple of miles, just be quiet, listen to the sounds of nature, tune into everything that's going on in this wild space, listen
mhm.
to the birds, listen to the sound of the tree leaves, and just become part of that wild space. Um, and then oftentimes you will come to a beautiful view and it will feel, very different than from when you started.
Yeah, sometimes I think sometimes you need that. You need to connect with the sounds of the earth, so to speak.
Mhm. Mhm.
As much as hokey as that sounds, or
Mhm.
woo woo as that sounds, sometimes you need it.
Well, and not just the sounds, but your sense of smell is actually extremely primal as well.
Hmm.
And the in wild spaces just smell different than urban spaces.
Oh, hell yeah.
You don't have the car exhaust
It
and
smells way more
smog.
earthy. There's a smell of
Mhm.
not bad decay in the air.
Mhm.
It's like that good rot that you
Yep.
smell within a forest.
Mhm.
It's not that, you when you come across a carcass or something that smells bad, that's different. But
Mhm.
there's a type of a rot, a decomposition that happens in the forest that is part of that smell that it's comforting in a way.
Mhm.
When
Yep.
I anytime I've gotten out into the woods is that those smells, they're very, very comforting because I grew up in the woods. I mean, I grew up in Maine. I grew up in Buxton.
Mhm.
You look at anything, I mean, Buxton's gotten a lot more built up nowadays, but you look
Mhm.
back at what Buxton looked like back when I was a kid, it was just woods. I mean, when we
Yeah.
traveled between houses, we went on trails usually in the woods.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was easier than walking down the roads to cut across through the forest.
Yeah. Well, and I personally, because I also grew up in a small town and very woodsy environment, I find that to be very restorative and in just like in a way like cleansing. And I
Mhm.
can, and as much as I loved where I traveled, the poor area of Cozumel was extremely busy and frenetic. There was a lot of people selling. They
Oh,
were
hell
trying to
yeah.
get your, and it that very urban environment, um, could smell a lot of exhaust and stuff, and that felt very draining. So to me, it's
But to
very
some people, they feel the
normal.
energy from that.
Yeah, they
and
they get
they feed off it.
enlivened by the energy.
Yeah.
You know, when I got out to the more wild places of Cozumel, when we went to Punta Sor to the beautiful reserve beach there, their nature preserve beach, and it was just like a open
Mhm.
space, wildness, and because that was like a very protective space there too, you could feel that that place also felt sacred because one, they did have some small Mayan ruins there, so it had been historically honored as a sacred space. And two, because they are nationally protecting it and keeping it wild. It also, you know, you could kind of feel that it was a special, extra special place.
Yeah. And that's I mean, when you find those, that's kinda neat too, when you connect to a place like that.
Mhm.
Because it may not mean anything to anybody else.
Mhm.
That place may not mean shit to anybody else.
Mhm.
But if it means something to you, then that connection's been made that, that can be a space for you.
Mhm.
Like, I've had many of those over the years, places that I would go. I was talking about East Royce. I've hiked East Royce I don't know how many different fucking times.
Mhm.
I love that mountain.
Yeah.
It's a mountain that fucking kills you,
Mhm.
but it's quick. Like, it
Mhm.
kills you quick.
Mhm.
Like, it beats the shit out of you, but you're done really fast.
Mhm.
Then you're at the top, you've got this amazing view over
Mhm.
to West Royce, and you can
Mhm.
see, kinda look over and see Ames and Speckled Mountain, and you're looking it down into Evans Notch, and
Mhm.
it's a beautiful view,
Mhm. Yep.
um, and, that I connected there,
Mhm.
so I've returned there many, many, many times.
Mhm.
And there's been a few others, the, Imp Trail, the loop,
Mhm. Yep.
to Imp Face across from Mount Washington, is another one. It's an amazing view. It's
Mhm.
a beautiful space, and
Mhm.
I love it.
Mhm.
You know, I've been there twice. I
Mhm.
definitely, plan on returning.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a mountain space, although mountains are traditionally considered sacred, often quite sacred spaces.
Mhm.
It could be the ocean. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love to do is go visit the beach and
Mhm.
collect seashells, and I just walk the beach, and it feels like I'm very much tuning in to
Well, there's something
the,
about the rhythm at the ocean of the waves and the sounds of the seagulls and and the other sounds that are present.
mhm,
There's something to be said for that too.
mhm,
You know, there's so many different types of outside experiences that you can have.
mhm,
Some people I love a fucking good thunderstorm.
mhm,
Love a good thunderstorm.
mhm,
But I don't know that my co-host on the 40 and Slip, Matt, loves thunderstorms. He lives in Oklahoma.
mhm,
Thunderstorms means he's might have to hide in the fucking cellar, but I fucking love thunderstorms. There's something about the smell in the air. And I don't know, Matt might love thunderstorms, just hates fucking tornadoes. Um,
mhm,
but there's something about the smell in the air
mhm,
and being able to, like, sit outside
mhm,
and just watch it come through.
mhm. Well, I love a good blizzard when I'm in my house.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
well, snowstorms are amazing because
Mhm,
if they're the really large snowstorms, it's what's really crazy about it is even if there's a lot of high wind,
mhm,
it's really quiet.
mhm,
Like, I'll go out and shovel in blizzards with the wind just whipping around, and you don't hear anything. I
mhm.
mean, yes, you do hear the wind, but not like you would if it wasn't snowing, because the snow just dampens
Yeah,
all that sound because the sound's just hitting off of everything in the air.
yeah, unlike a big rainstorm, you don't hear the raindrops hitting the house and stuff like you it
It's
just
just
falls.
quiet.
Mhm,
It's really quiet, and
mhm,
it's creepy
mhm.
sometimes. Like, I've been out in the middle of snowstorms, it's just it's fucking creepy quiet.
Yeah. I mean, I've been snowshoeing out through like out in the farms, woods, and it's just sprinkling snow, and it's just so peaceful, and
Mhm.
and it looks a little bit magical when the
And
wind
sometimes
blows. And
when you're in the woods too, if you're really quiet, you're not, like, moving, you can hear the fucking snowfall.
mhm,
That's really weird because it's quiet, but you can hear it.
mhm,
Like, you can hear it, like, hitting the trees, you can hear it's
mhm,
very weird to almost you can it's like, "What?"
mhm. Yeah. And it's good to just practice being still. And I can remember once being out in the woods, and I was just sitting and tuning into the forest.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'd been there for like maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden I heard something and I just listened. And the next thing you know, a whole flock of turkeys came and they just walked within feet of me. And I just stood still and I just tuned in and I just watched them come and they walked right past me. And I thought, huh, like, maybe I'm really trying finally starting to figure out how to get really still when I can when I can get still enough that the flock of turkeys will walk by and not get spooked.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was, walking through a trail, out in the woods between roads, and I came around this friggin' bend, and there was I can't remember if it was a pine or a fir with the branches way low because the snow held down,
Mhm.
and as I walked by it, boom, this fucking pheasant just popped out from underneath it and took the fuck off, and it was loud as shit when it took off, and it scared the living shit right out of me. I stone frozen for a second, just couldn't move. And then, like, my heart's just going a million miles a minute, and I'm just, like, trying to fucking walk my way through the rest of the forest going, "Fucking bird."
Yeah.
But, because I was so and it was snowing that day, and because it was so quiet, like, when that bird broke that silence, he scared the shit out of me because I was so out of touch with, you know, sensing that anything was going on. Like, I was just gone.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the type of thing that being in those situations, allowing yourself to just
Mhm.
go into the walk or the
Mhm.
hike or
Mhm.
whatever, that can be your sacred space. It can be like your meditation. It can be or it is meditation.
Mhm.
Um, it can,
Another one that we didn't mention, but and it's not such a nature one, um is is writing or drawing.
yeah.
And sometimes when you just sit down and you write or you journal or you draw a design, and it doesn't have to be a picture of anything, it can be um
Mhm.
an abstract just kind of lines and patterns, but you can get into that very focused, like, your mind drifts off into its own little sacred space type of feeling, and all you need is a pen and a piece of paper,
Yeah.
and that in itself can be a practice, and
Yeah,
just
and
kind
you
of
don't even and you don't even have to be, like, fucking a great artist to do that. Like, I mean, some people think, "Oh, well, I'm no good at it." Well, I hate to break it to everybody, but fucking artists weren't good at it to begin with either. Like, they got good. They took
Mhm.
the time. So, if that's something that interests you, then fucking do it.
Right. I mean, it's a way to get to that place of peacefulness. It can be very creative. You can there are times when I've sat down and I've just drawn and made patterns, and it you know helps still my mind. Like you and I have talked about how I can have a very busy mind. My mind
Mhm.
can go like a million miles, and you're like, you need to relax and chill out. One of those ways that I can access that feeling of peace and stillness and get my thoughts under control is through just doing some patterned drawing and sitting down and having and just enjoying the creative process of making art, even if I never show it to anybody else.
Mhm. Yeah, and it can be cathartic too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like or writing things down. Some people just write shit out
Mhm.
and it never sees the light of day. Journaling.
Mhm.
Journaling is a form of friggin'.
Mhm.
It's the same idea.
Yeah, and then one of those is like when you wake up in the morning and you just write out everything that comes to mind and kind of like empties out your brain, and then you
Right.
just kind of forget about it, and it helps you start the day with a kind of a clean mental slate.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that's one of
oh,
those great things about sacred space is it can help bring you some a mental and emotional renewal and a chance to like, you
well,
know.
yeah, and especially if you use it for that.
Mhm.
Like that, and I think that's part of the important thing of it is like if that's the way that you symbolize this space, if that's what you're using that time for, then yeah, that's what you're going to get out of it.
Mhm.
I think it's in how in the symbols that you use, in how
Mhm.
you see that space or you see
Mhm.
that time.
Mhm.
If that time is rejuvenating, if that time is refreshing, then yeah, it will be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the like the things that really kill it is when your practice starts becoming a chore.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and if your practice starts to become a chore, then I think that's when you need to just step back and kind of rethink it because it's not meant to be a chore. It's meant to be,
No,
in my
you gotta
perspective,
want to do it.
it's it's meant to be this thing that is, to me, best. You bring yourself and you are connecting with something, and it is not a to do. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
you're not entering in it in the right headspace if you know.
Yeah, yeah, if you feel like it's something you have to do,
Hmm.
then you're not there.
Yeah.
Like, it needs to be your desire to do it.
Hmm.
Like, that has to be your headspace. I mean,
Yeah.
and anyone who gets into it otherwise is, folly.
Hmm.
Complete folly,
Right.
in
And
my opinion.
you know, I mean, I think it does make sense to kind of plan ahead. Um, One of the things that I do is I will have a little backyard fire. You can have some sacred time with a fire in your backyard. Um, you can develop some ceremony about this. But one time I was doing this and it was becoming too much of this like to do thing, and I was rushing to get it done, and I didn't. I was so focused on trying to get this thing done that I didn't do things that needed to be done to make sure that it was a peaceful experience when it happened. And what happened was that my dog got loose in the middle of it. And then I learned, okay, I do need to set aside the time, but I need to make sure that I'm ready and I'm coming into
Right.
this fully ready so that in the middle of it my dog isn't like running through the fire and catching her tail on fire and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a problem.
That all of a sudden, you are no longer in sacred space. You're in crisis mode to
You're in
figure out.
stress ball mode.
Yes.
Anxiety!
Right. So again, that's a example that's been dramatized. My dog did not catch on fire ever.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Holly, we had a rough start this one. I would have had us go a little longer had we started when we were planning on it today, probably, but it's just been a hell of a friggin' day already. I'm sure it's just only gonna get better. Da-da-da-da-da.
Well, this has been a really interesting week, and we just had a big eclipse
Yep.
on the 26th. So, you know, energetically speaking, this has been kind of an energy period where things have really shifted. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And it's the end of the year. You're
it,
transitioning from Christmas to New Year's.
mhm.
It tends to bring on a different mindset in people. So it's
Well,
a weird time.
it is a weird time, and it's become a very commercialized time, and yet one of the practices I've been doing too is that in the northern hemisphere right now with the winter solstice, which is the darkest point, the time of um, least amount of daylight, most amount of nighttime, and it's very cold. So it's been to the eight, way back in time, often considered the most introspective and time of going within. So, one of the things I've been doing is doing a lot of journaling to really go within, kind of focus on what's going to be coming from the new year, which is kind of this opposite thing of, all the holiday parties, all the shopping, all the, being busy, making sure you have all these things for all the different holiday
Check off your
celebrations,
list.
where in a lot of ways the energy is set up for you to go within, to pay attention to your inner landscape, and then as the days get longer, you become more outwardly focused. So it's just like a kind of this interesting thing where sometimes the energies are not working together.
Yeah, it's a weird it's a weird time because like you're saying, the daylight thing fucks with your circadian rhythm. Mine's fucked up anyway. I'm a fucking mess when it comes to that. But for other people, so and we all have to deal with one another on the planet. I mean, it's we're all here together. So if things are affecting the great group, then yeah, of course it's going to affect everybody. But yeah, it's a strange time. And the next time we broadcast live, it will be the new year. It'll be 2020.
I know.
2020. So we gotta we'll have to figure out a show topic before then. If I can pull my head out of my ass, we'll manage that. If not, we'll figure something else out. This has been Slip in the Night, episode 16. Sacred Spaces. Hope you liked it. I don't think we kept our friend David Thundercloud. He might still be there. He stopped talking. He said he was Native American.
That was awesome.
Or is. So,
Shout out to David Thundercloud. That's
hope he stayed with the show for the whole show, but I don't think he made it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he made it. We, some of these things are very niche. Only certain people like them, and it's bringing on new listeners. It takes a long time. So, but yeah, we'll be back next week.
Well, this is really just time for you and me to bullshit, and anybody else who listens.
yeah. If you listen, then just fucking Thanks for coming along for the ride. We'll be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, be good, everybody. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all that happy stuff. I didn't get to sing Merry Christmas on this show to everybody. And we will talk to you very, very soon.